Good morning, folks. Hey, it is your host, Mad Morgan. How's everybody doing today? Hey, it's another early morning, and yeah, it's been a few days, so on and off, probably about a week actually at this point, that I did my last episode. But anyways, here I am now, and today I'm just kind of conflicted. I'm trying to figure out what I should be talking about today. And I have a few ideas, but I mean, they're inspired by, what I read in the news, inspired by, whatever recently I've come across to actually talk about. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record and stuff, but, there's a few things I want to actually get put into, I want to put out there, right? Because, it's pretty much just talk, and everything else based on where I'm at. I'll tell you what I've been thinking about recently, but before I get into that, please check out themadmorgan.com. Yes, themadmorgan.com. Um, and that's M-A-D, eh? Because for some reason, the transcriptions like to call me Matt, like Matthew. I'm not Matt, I'm mad. But why are you mad, Mad Morgan? Well, I'm mad because the state of the world, right? The shit people do. This is why I'm mad. Because, geez, I tell you, I just don't know. People realizes how up their ass their heads are. Anyways, enough on that. Check out themadmorgan.com for more information, details, and this, that, and everything else. And also any assistance you can provide. So, where have we been at lately? We've had a few toss-ups of this, that, and everything else. And, it's a little frustrating. But we know what we do. We do what we can to get the message out there. Of course, that's where I'm at in that regards. I'm basically trying to get the message out there to try to change things to the positive, and it is all about the positive, right? It's not self-serving. It's about the positive for the greater good for everybody. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't adopt this. I can go on a million and one different directions, and usually I do on my episodes to basically try to, I guess, get people to see within themselves their shortcomings or their issues or their areas that they could use some assistance. Like, Jesus, Burfy butt. Like, seriously. Friggin' bright lights, dude. Get a clue. Um, but, people are so ignorant and arrogant. Like, they're brainless, right? It comes from a lot of different environments. It comes from upbringing. It comes from where they grew up, what's become the social norm, what's become acceptable based on learning from older generations by examples and stuff like that. And you can tell people that don't come from civilization, like a civilized situation, because of the stupidity that they do. Their actions, right? Their behaviors. Like, look at somebody that's from, like, Venezuela, okay? I want to give you an example here. And I only know this because I had a guy that was very aggressive in the way he did things. But that's the way they do things. They're aggressive and they intimidate people to scare them in order to getting what they want. Is it right? No, it's not. It's not right at all. And you wouldn't find that kind of behavior in a civilized society where basically people have a certain level of civility, where they're polite, they're kind, they're considerate, they don't intimidate. There's a sense of honor, a sense of code, a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not acting like barbarians, right? You're not intimidating. You're not trying to threaten. You're not trying to do any of that stuff. So when you have people that come from those environments and those societies that are so backwards and so barbarian, with their intimidation and their threats and their, puff out my chest and look all tough and, try to scare everybody and all this stuff to get what I want. That's not right. That's not civilization. That's just barbarianism. That is. It's going back like a couple thousand years, to try to intimidate people because this is going to keep me safe, keep me protected. Well, okay, but time and place, right? Time and place. Don't do that shit. And when you go to a civilized society, don't do that shit because it completely throws things off tilter. And people aren't used to that kind of behavior. They're not used to people coming in being intimidating because there's a certain class, there's a certain uh, calmness, there's a certain decorum which keeps things peaceful because people aren't acting like barbarians. But now we got the barbarians at the gate moving into polite society, right? And they're realizing that these intimidation factors, which are so commonplace where they're from, actually get some results where they are now. But it's just like, okay, so everybody's backing off. They're being more successful with their threatening ways, but eventually that shine is going to wear off, right? Eventually, people are going to have enough of this aggressive ways, this threatening ways. People in those polite societies are basically push is going to come to shove, and they're going to shove back, right? So you got to ask yourself, how much are you willing to keep moving forward with this and making this the example, in order to get your ways. That's the other question you got to ask yourself. I mean, are you going to push the envelope? You got to push the envelope because eventually, even the most calm, mild-mannered, polite people will actually have enough where they will push back, and rightly so. And they should push back because they're being polite and they're being civil, and it's a good society. It's has its rules and everything else, and people want to live in a sense of security, a sense of peace of mind, not having to feel threatened when they go outside by some idiot on a bus or on the street or wherever, something like that. So they want to have that peace of mind. But if you have these thugs, and thugs is not a good thing, just so you know. As much as you think it's all cool to be called a thug, it's not. You're scum. The thing is that people want to live in the peace of mind of a society where it's peaceful, right? They have the security of going out any time of day and not have to feel threatened or intimidated or, anything along those lines. People just don't want that. It's not the Wild West anymore. We're hoping that we've evolved to the point where we can actually feel a sense of security. Don't have to worry about getting attacked or anything else, when we're out in the world living our lives, because that's the way people want to feel. They want to feel that security, but not when you have this element that's coming into a polite society. So you have this element that threatens that security, that threatens that peace of mind, that disturbs that peace, right? Well, enough is enough. People have limits, right? And I guess what I'm coming to is that this is a message to all those idiots out there. Like the expression says, fuck around and find out. And that's what I basically want. I'm not going to call it that because, it'll get edited and censored across the board. But I'll probably just call this episode and find out because I don't condone violence. I think the word is condone, basically. I don't agree with. I don't support it. I don't, wave a flag banner for it saying, yeah, it should be something that's good. No, it's not. There's no reason for violence at all. At all, at all, at all. I believe a person has a right to defend themselves, but I do not believe a person should be aggressive on the attack for no reason. If there is no reason for it, there should be no intimidation. There should be no threatening. There should be none of that shit. That's something that is not required, not needed, not something that people should have to live their lives with. It's just the way it is. There's no reason why people should have to endure that stuff. So, I guess where I'm going to swing this around to is that when you have a polite society that's changing, right? You have a worse element coming in. You have the barbarians at the gate, and they're through the gate. Then at that point, you really have to ask yourself, what what do we do now? Because people that are supposed to be in the security of keeping us safe don't want to be in those positions anymore. They're not happy about that. They're not happy about, you know, uh, trying to keep the peace and be in that situation because it's become worse, and they worry about their own lives and they worry about their own safety. So, you know, that's the thing. People, you know, it's really difficult to find good law enforcement. It's no wonder why people, you know, fall through the cracks and you get bad law enforcement. You get some type of law enforcement that doesn't hold things fairly and basically uses their own opinions, their own judgments, but, you know, kind of jaded in one way. And you don't want that. You want fair law enforcement, right? You want fair law enforcement that's going to be firm. They're going to be tough. They're going to lay down the law, but they're not going to be prejudiced based on anything else other than, you know, the crime. And that's fine. But we don't have enough law enforcement. We need more law enforcement. We need to level the playing field from these barbarians that are coming from other places in the world that aren't civilized to a civilized society. And we have to crack down on this stuff like that. And I'll tell you what's influenced a lot of this stuff. Like, I feel that if you're scamming somebody, that's an attack. I feel if you're ripping off somebody, that's an attack. If you are in any way, shape, or form doing something that's unethical, that's an attack. Is it an attack that you deserve a bullet to the head? No, but you deserve to have some consequences. There should be no excuse for you. Okay, there's no excuse for that kind of behavior, and it should be dealt with swiftly and firmly. And I do agree. Well, there's different levels, right? And that's, of course, where law enforcement comes in. They have to follow a structure of laws that basically state that, okay, this is wrong. This has to be addressed. What is the proper consequence for this? Right? That's how it should be. So when a society or a country stifles the ability to do certain things, well, that's doesn't really help, right? But at the same time, opening it up that people could be fanatics about it because they have, you know, the right to do so because it's been, you know, given to them being born, like for instance the United States and their gun laws. You know, you got to find a fine line. If you're telling somebody, oh yeah, you have the right to do this, and people just go freaking ballistic on it, well, okay, that's a different story. Now, I guess my point is, a weapon should not be used in aggressive stance. In my opinion, should not be. It should not be used in aggressive, and there's exceptions to this rule, but from my viewpoint, a weapon should be used in defense. To defend yourself against an aggressor. To defend yourself in a situation where people are being overly threatening. Now, there's got to be some level-headedness and some, you know, smart decisions as far as this goes. You know, you have to really kind of interpret what is considered a threat and what's not considered a threat, and make the right judgment in accordance to that. But, you know, when you see the news, you read about all this stuff, you read about home invasions, you read about, you know, people getting stabbed in the streets, you read about all this violence going on by this scum that's coming from other places, you know, and invading societies, polite societies, then you really have to ask yourself, okay, well, how do I prepare myself for this? How do I defend myself for this? How do I keep my family safe with regard to this? Now, if you're one of those thug criminals that, you know, is cowardly and breaks into people's houses with your shitty friends, you know, and really tries to intimidate and threaten and steal people that work hard for what they have and live an honest life, well, okay, you've kind of passed the threshold, right? How would you feel if somebody did that to you, broke into your house, you know? took your stuff. It's kind of like, let's throw it on the other shoe on the other foot, so to speak. Tell me how you would handle a situation if the roles were reversed. If somebody did that to you, how would you react? So think about that. You know, how would you want to handle that situation? And if you're going to handle that situation in such a way to equally match, then okay, don't be surprised if people actually act a certain way. And the reason why they're acting a certain way is the fact is that this is what's going on. They want to defend themselves. They want to defend their livelihood, you know, where they live, which is supposed to be their sanctuary. This is stuff that people want to defend. So, very, very, very frustrating when you see stuff like multiple intruders breaking into a house, right? And people are sleeping. So they're at their weakest point, and people are sleeping. And, you know, people are vulnerable at that point. I saw this home invasion in Etobicoke recently. Actually, it was on social media. 4 dickheads broke into a house when a family was sleeping with hammers. Can you imagine being woken up like that, 4 o'clock in the friggin' morning, with these 4 dickheads breaking into your house and threatening your family and stealing from you, and just, wow, what a bunch of fucking cowards. Anyways, thankfully that this was a law-abiding, level-headed citizen. And he came out and met them with a shotgun. Well, Buck, I tell you, there should be, you know, I think there is a law that you are able to defend yourself if need be. But, you know, those fuckers should find out. Those are the people that should find out. There should be, across the world, that should be a rule. If you are going to break into my house and you are going to threaten my family and my sanctuary, a place where I should feel safe, because even after this situation I'm going to feel unsafe because of the situation. So if you're going to threaten that peace of mind, that tranquility, if you're going to threaten that, I should be able to put a bullet in your ass. Oh yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because if you think about it, somebody invades your sanctuary, threatens your family, your peace of mind, everything else, you're going to be fucked up afterwards. You're going to be fucked up afterwards. No matter what the outcome is, you're going to be fucked up seriously. It's just the way it is. It's like any sort of traumatic, violent situation you go through, you're going to be fucked. Whether it's a home invasion, whether it's rape, whether it's violence of any kind, you're going to be fucked up. Look at why soldiers come back with PSTD or whatever, you know, because the fact is they've been in that situation that was so violent that it rocked their emotions, their mental, everything, and it fucks them up. And it'll be the same thing if somebody broke into your house and your home, and you're trying to protect your family and your loved ones and your items and shit. It's gonna fuck you up. So, you know, it's not just that crime at that time, you know, and you submit it to insurance, you get reimbursed and everything else. Then you have to think about the rest of it, how it actually affects your head at that point. That's not right. So those criminals have actually left you in a pretty screwed up situation long term. Well, they're hooting and hollering, probably coming in stoned, you know, and you know, hooting and hollering with their buddies, thinking that there's no big deal to this, not realizing the consequence on the people. Oh, you're in there for a few quick bucks to get some drugs or party or whatever, stuff like that. Okay, but you're not realizing the impact that you're leaving on all those people that you've just traumatized. Okay? Fuck around and find out, because I honestly think the Canadian laws should be changed, and changes in a lot of worlds should be doing. You got to remember, you got to be able to put this stuff into the hands of level-headed individuals, right? there has to be some restrictions and regulations by all means. Law-abiding citizens that have been trained in order to be able to have the ability to protect themselves and defend themselves, yeah, that should be something that should be allowed. Because you're not always going to be able to find law enforcement and peace officers around to be able to handle that situation. So I think recognized citizens should be given the right to be able to deter these individuals that are cowards that are doing these violent acts, hands down. Oh, well, that just is going to encourage the criminals to get their own weapons and their own guns. They already fucking have them. Are you fucking stupid? They already have the weapons. The thing is that they're unregulated. They don't have to have a license and training and everything else. They're a bunch of fucking retards running around with friggin', weaponry and guns and shit like that, and they're getting all brave thinking that they can take on the fucking world because they got a gun in their hand. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a little scary even thinking about that. I've seen videos about these fucking idiots, that have guns in hands and how brave they get all of a sudden. And then you freaking take the gun away from them and they're freaking cowering in the corner. Like, it's amazing how a weapon in somebody's hand can make them freaking brave. Now, bravery comes from within. You shouldn't need a weapon in your hand to feel brave. Anyways, so yeah, I think there should be a deterrent. Think about this for 1 second. If you were a criminal-minded individual, right? If you weren't raised right, your parents let you down, you got involved with the wrong crowd, you've been brainwashed, whatever the case may be, where you start thinking that violence and crime is acceptable, you're fucked in the head. Like, I really get pissed off about these criminals. Oh, I'm religious, I believe in God, everything else. Fuck you, you do. Because you don't have a criminal mindset if you believe in God. Because that's not the peaceful nature that the faith actually does teach you, okay? So, don't give me that bullshit. I don't want to hear that bullshit. Anyways, besides that, it's a little bit more of a deterrent. Like these four assholes in Etobicoke that friggin' broke into that house with hammers, all in black and hoodies and everything else. I mean, don't get me wrong, the owner of this house was smart. He had cameras, everything else situated, and he put some thought into his defense of his family, and defending and protecting his environment. And I applaud him for that. But those four thugs, and I'm going to call them thugs, but I'm not saying that in a positive way. I want you to know it's not a positive at all. It's quite the negative, actually. If the rules were a little different in some countries, like especially Canada, they probably would think twice about actually doing that, right? Committing that crime. They still committed a crime. Breaking and entering his home invasion is not a light situation. So they still did that, and they should have to pay the consequence. But think about it being a little bit of deterrent if the rules were changed, and if they knew that they could be met with, a shotgun, or any sort of freaking heavy, something other than a hammer. If they were going to be met with something a little more scary or intimidating, they might think twice about, performing that action, that crime. And that's where I think that should be something that should change in the way that Canada allows things. Like they banned handguns. I love this. So you can't buy a handgun in Canada anymore. This is their genius rule. Oh, we're going to ban handguns. There's no need for them. Say that to the criminals that have the handguns. Because now they're just laughing, going, okay, so hang on for 1 second. You disarmed law-abiding citizens from buying handguns, but yet the criminals have the handguns, and they don't have licenses, they don't have permits. So how do you figure that that's actually going to change the rules because you ban the sale of handguns? Well, because there's going to be less handguns on the street. Hello, um, you've just destabilized the whole thing. Now the criminals have all the power. Law abiding citizens don't have the power. Where's the balance here? And then you're going to take further and further and further tools out of the hands of law abiding citizens. For why? Doesn't make sense. Anyways, so recently with world events, I've been doing a little bit of shopping because I am a law abiding citizen. I do hold licenses for restricted and non restricted weapons. I'm allowed to go out and do this because, yeah, I'm a good citizen. I do the right thing. And I've been sitting on the fence on this, looking at the world events, going, shit. You know, I don't have, believe it or not, I don't own any guns, right? I own a compound bow, a very minimal, because a lot of people in my circles don't like guns. They bug them. But I'm starting to sit back and I'm like, okay, well, that's great and all, but the world's pretty fucked up right now. And it's getting more fucked up. And I'm hoping it swings back the other way where it's less fucked up. And I'm thinking to myself, I think it's time to go shopping. I think it's time to get some little deterrence in case somebody decides to hurt my family, right? Or the society breaks apart a little more. You know, what am I going to do? Go inside my compound bow? Hang on for 1 second. I got one shot. Let me reload. Like, that's not going to do anything, especially from some of the idiots that I've seen every day out there. The fucking barbarians are in the gates because we fucking let them in because we were stupid, and that's just not going to fly. So I've been thinking about that. I'm like, maybe I should do some shopping. But then I've started looking at what's allowed, all the regulations, all the rules, what you cannot buy. Oh, not this, not that. Oh, we took away handguns. We're going to take away this other shit too. It makes sense and it's logical, but no, we're going to take that away too. And take away this, take away that. Well, we'll let you hunt if you want to shoot a deer or something like that. We'll let you buy some firearms for that. This isn't fucking the wild. I mean, no. That's so stupid. Okay, great. Awesome. That's not going to help me if somebody's breaking into my house. Let me get my Browning single shot shotgun. Hang on for 1 second. It's 10 feet long. Give me 1 second here. Like, don't ever raise a weapon. Don't ever be aggressive with a weapon. It's not for power. Weapons are not for power. Weapons are for defense. Okay? If you're a coward enough that you need a weapon in your hand to try to convince somebody of something or intimidate somebody, make them do what you want them to do, you're a coward, in my opinion. Yeah, so I'm debating on this. I'm sitting on the fence on this. I don't want to. I owned a shotgun at one point. It became more of a conversation piece. But, I'm sitting on the fence figuring out, well, if I got this, I got to secure this. I got to keep it out of harm's way, and I got to keep it hidden because I'm not going to have a spouse that's going to actually agree to it. But I think it's becoming a necessity. I'm sitting on the fence on this. Not something to bring out and flash, and look at me. It's kind of one of those. You know what the saying is? It's better to have and not need than need and not have. That's kind of where I'm sitting right now. As much as a little part of me is like, fuck, I'd like to go visiting some people and friggin' settle some scores. No, that's not what it's about. That's not why you get something to defend your home and your family. It's not to go out and settle scores and, be empowered to scare the living crap out of people so they change their ways. No. The reason why you have some sort of defense is basically to defend your family and loved ones and your sanctuary, which is your house. So if you're ever going to buy a weapon for anything else other than its intended use, fine. Don't do it. Don't do it. You should be anywhere near it. And you should get some help. You should get your head checked. Um, if you're into marksmanship, which I love marksmanship, I love target practice and target shooting and everything else, and that's kind of a fun thing to do. So I could see another reason why, but you really have to be disciplined to keep your head on straight when it comes to your reasons for the decisions that you make. You can't. It's like when your doctor prescribes you a medication to help you with something like anxiety. And I'm going to use that example, and it should be the same example you use when it comes to weapons in your house and like firearms. My doctor once said to me, he goes, you know, I don't want to prescribe you a drug that you're going to run to when you have a little bit of stress, because that's not the way it's intended to be, right? So I don't want you to run to it every situation as just, an easy solution. And I'd rather you deal with the root cause of the issue versus just a quick fix. And that should be the same thing that you should do when it comes to firearms. And as long as you can get citizens that can keep that in check, then they should be able to have additional rights, right? If you can get somebody that their magic solution is pulling out a firearm, whether it's a handgun, whether or not it's a rifle, you know, as long as it's the last resort, like that medication for anxiety I told you about, as long as it's a last resort, then fine. If it's for target practice, fine. You take it out, you play with it, you do your thing, and then you put it back where it belongs. And still keeping what it's designed for. But the law should change on that because we need deterrence for these punks, these cowards that are doing these violent things for a quick buck or for thrills. There needs to be a deterrence, and it's like anything. If you basically put that little nugget in their small little heads that, yeah, there is a risk that you could lose your life or limb or be seriously injured, then you might think twice about doing stupid things. But you should, and I'm talking to law enforcement now, and I'm talking to the federal government of every country, not just Canada. You should make it so the law-abiding citizens have options, right, to defend themselves and defend their neighbors, but not at a waving it around to look at me, I'm so powerful, but a last resort solution from the barbarians at the gate, so to speak. That's something that should definitely be considered when it comes to laws. You should change these laws to allow this kind of thing because it's a brave new world out there. Unfortunately, it is getting pretty scary out there. When I start shopping and I start thinking, and then I look at all the no, no, you can't. Here's no, you can't do that, slapping me on the friggin' back of the hand, like, no, don't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. What other fucking options are you giving me when somebody's walking into my house with friggin' armed like Rambo, and you're telling me I can sit there with a friggin' ruler and smack them on the friggin' back of the hand? Like, no, change the laws, level the playing field. I'm not saying be like the United States where everybody's a psycho with a fucking gun, but I'm talking about allow handguns back onto the market. Allow additional courses and everything else for law-abiding citizens. Like make it stricter, put some courses out there, make them go through the paces of all this stuff like that. Enough with the excuses. Fuck around and find out. There's got to be consequences for people's actions. And I'm not talking about somebody pisses you off, and makes a bad comment on social media and, you go to their house and whatever. No. I'm talking about when shit hits the fan and you have no other options and you're backed into a corner, you should be able to come out swinging. That's what I'm saying. Other than that, I don't support violence of any kind. of any form or fashion. Do you realize the most peaceful countries, and this is food for thought, I'm just going to leave you because shit, I went into law, a lot of overtime again. You realize some of the most peaceful countries in this world have the open rules when it comes to firearms? And do you realize there's a reason for that? Think about this for 1 second. Because you don't know if everybody's fucking armed. Look about Norway. Look about Iceland. Look at some countries that have quite the liberal rules when it comes to firearms, and then look how peaceful these countries are. Take a good look. Do some research. Google it. And not the United States, because the United States is filled with a bunch of crackheads, in my opinion. But look at the countries that actually have firm rules and firm laws, and basically opened up the ability to be able to arm themselves and everything else. And look how peaceful those societies are, because they basically understand the meaning of fuck around and find out. You know? So I'm going to leave you with that to think about. I'm still sitting on the fence of what I'm going to do. I think it's just I'm one push away from, you know, the next step. But it's kind of like one of those situations where you should get on it while you still can before they put more rules and take away uh, more options, right? So that's the other thing. You know, how long do you sit on the fence until the only thing that you're friggin' being able to buy is a pea shooter? That's what it comes down to. Like, how long do you leave it before all the actual tools that are going to make a difference are available? You got to think about that. But either way, be responsible. Be responsible, law abiding, do the right thing. Don't don't do anything rash. Don't do anything violent. Don't do anything along those lines. A weapon in your hand doesn't make you powerful. All right? Don't lose your head on that shit. You're a coward if you have to have a gun in your hand to intimidate and scare other people. That just makes you a coward. That doesn't make you honorable, doesn't make you tough, doesn't make you anything but a coward. Defense is a different story. Anyways, fuck around and find out. Be nice to each other. Try to have integrity. Doing the right thing when no one else is watching. You know, it's not that hard. We all want the same thing in this world, but for some reason, we lose sight of that beyond our front step. We lose sight of that. What else is out there? It's so stupid that we sit there, we look at each other through our windows, and we don't realize that we're all looking for the same thing, but we lose sight of that when it comes to dealing with everybody else out there, not helping each other out and everything else, and being a complete dicks to each other, and having that mentality, oh, I'm glad it's them and not me. It's a fucking shitty attitude to have. Once upon a time, villages actually stuck together and helped each other out. What happened to that? Where's our global village? Anyways, food for thought, my friends. I hope you realize, in disclaimer on this one, I'm not supporting violence. I'm not supporting anything else but the fact that people should be able to live in peace and harmony and peace of mind of security for themselves and for their families and be safe. And hey, support law enforcement. Get people recruited. Get the right people recruited. Let's get more law enforcement out there. Let's get RoboCop out there. Let's get more cameras out there because, if you're going to take away everything else, then put something out there that's going to be able to keep us safe and make us feel secure until the rest of the world gets their heads out of their asses and start actually acting civilized and helping each other out. Anyways, I'm your host, Matt Morgan. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, another long episode, but fuck, that's been on my mind for a while and just driving me nuts. And I had to say something constructive and structured with regards to this, but I want to thank you for tuning in. Please check out themadmorgan.com. Thank you very much. Check it out. Give us some support if you could, because I could really use it these days. Times are tough. But either way, keep your integrity in check, and I will see you next episode. Love you. Mad Morgan signing off till next episode. Bye for now.